What happens when a young developer uncovers his boss's shocking lies and risks everything to expose the truth? This is the story of how one toxic leader brought a thriving team to its knees, and the brave employees who fought back to build something better changed their lives forever. Daniel Adebayo adjusted his glasses and stared at the glowing screen in front of him. The office was quiet except for the soft hum of computers and the occasional clatter of keyboards. Domino Stride Solutions, a tech startup in the heart of Victoria Island, Lagos, was his dream workplace. The sleek glass walls, the modern furniture, and the buzz of innovation made him feel like he was part of something big. Daniel was the youngest member of the Naija Just Pay team, a group tasked with creating an app that would change how Nigerians handled money. The team was small but talented. There was Chinedu Eze, the senior developer with years of experience. Funke Balogun, the creative designer who could turn boring ideas into stunning visuals. And Tunde Okafor, the project manager who kept everyone on track. Leading the team was Alex Okonkwo, a man who seemed to have it all. Alex was tall, confident, and always dressed in sharp suits. He had a way with words that made everyone believe in his vision. At first, Daniel admired him. Alex was the kind of leader who could inspire a room with just a few sentences. But things weren't as perfect as they seemed. It started with small things. Alex would take credit for ideas during meetings, even if they weren't his. He'd interrupt Funke mid-sentence, dismissing her suggestions with a wave of his hand. "We don't have time for that," he'd say, even though her designs were what made their apps stand out. Daniel noticed how Alex treated Chinedu differently too. Chinedu was the most experienced person on the team, but Alex micromanaged him like he was a rookie. "Chinedu, are you sure you know what you're doing?" Alex would ask, his voice dripping with sarcasm. At first, Daniel thought it was just stress. The Naija Just Pay project was a big deal, and the pressure was intense. But then came the day Funke resigned. It happened during a team meeting. Funke had presented a new design for the app's interface. It was bold, colorful, and uniquely Nigerian. But Alex didn't even let her finish. "This is too flashy," he said, rolling his eyes. "We're not running a carnival here. Stick to the basics." Funke's face turned red. She opened her mouth to respond, but Alex cut her off. "Next time, come prepared with something useful," he snapped. The room fell silent. Daniel glanced at Chinedu, who was staring at the floor. Tunde cleared his throat and tried to change the subject, but the damage was done. The next morning, Funke didn't show up for work. Instead, an email popped up in everyone's inbox. "Dear team, effective immediately, I am resigning from my position at Domino Stride Solutions. It has been a pleasure working with you all, but I can no longer be part of an environment that does not value creativity or respect. Best of luck with Naija Just Pay. Funke Balogun." Daniel read the email twice, his heart pounding. Funke was gone. Just like that. Alex didn't seem bothered. "We don't need dead weight," he said during the morning meeting. "We'll find someone better." But Daniel couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Funke wasn't dead weight. She was one of the smartest, most talented people he knew. If she could leave, what did that mean for the rest of them? As the day went on, Daniel noticed the tension in the air. Chinedu was quieter than usual, and Tunde kept checking his phone like he was waiting for something. Daniel couldn't focus on his work. His mind kept going back to Funke's email. "I can no longer be part of an environment that does not value creativity or respect." Those words stuck with him. What if Funke was right? What if Alex wasn't the great leader he pretended to be? Daniel didn't have answers, but one thing was clear. The dream team was starting to crack. The days after Funke's resignation felt heavy, like the air before a storm. The office was quieter, but not in a peaceful way. It was the kind of quiet that made Daniel's skin crawl, like everyone was holding their breath, waiting for the next bad thing to happen. Alex didn't seem to notice, or maybe he didn't care. He walked into the office every morning with the same confident smile, like nothing had changed. But everything had. The Naija Just Pay project was falling behind. Without Funke's designs, the app looked dull and uninspired. Chinedu worked late every night, trying to fix the coding issues, but Alex kept adding more tasks to his plate. "Chinedu, I need you to rewrite this entire section," Alex said one afternoon, tossing a stack of papers on Chinedu's desk. "And make it fast. We don't have all day." Chinedu frowned. Alex, this section is fine. I've already tested it and it works perfectly. Alex leaned over Chinedu's desk, his voice low but sharp. Are you questioning me? Just do it. Daniel watched from his desk, his stomach twisting. Chinedu was the most experienced person on the team. If Alex didn't respect him, what hope did the rest of them have? The tension didn't stop there. Tunde, the project manager, started avoiding Alex altogether. He'd disappear for hours, claiming he had meetings, but Daniel suspected he was just trying to escape the toxic atmosphere. One afternoon, Daniel overheard Tunde talking on the phone in the break room. I don't know how much longer I can do this, Tunde said, his voice low. Alex is driving everyone crazy. If something doesn't change soon, I'm out. Daniel froze. Tunde was thinking about leaving too? The thought scared him. Tunde was the one who kept the team organized. Without him, the project would fall apart. But the worst part was how Alex treated Daniel. At first, Daniel thought Alex respected him. After all, Alex had hired him straight out of university, calling him a bright young mind. But now, Daniel realized it was just another way for Alex to control him. Daniel, I need you to stay late tonight, Alex said one evening, just as Daniel was packing up to leave. But I've already worked overtime this week, Daniel protested. Alex raised an eyebrow. Are you saying no to me? Remember, you're lucky to even have this job. Daniel bit his tongue and sat back down. He couldn't afford to lose this job. Not in Lagos, where good jobs were hard to come by. But as the days went on, Daniel started to notice something strange. Alex's progress reports didn't match what was actually happening with the project. The reports made it seem like everything was on track, but Daniel knew the truth. The app was nowhere near ready. One night, after everyone else had gone home, Daniel decided to investigate. He stayed late, digging through files and comparing Alex's reports to the actual data. What he found made his blood run cold. Alex had been lying. The reports were full of inflated numbers and false promises. Alex had been telling upper management that the project was on schedule, but in reality, they were months behind. Daniel sat back in his chair, his heart racing. What was he supposed to do now? If he told someone, Alex would deny it and probably fire him. But if he stayed silent, the whole project could fail and everyone would blame the team, not Alex. The next morning, Daniel pulled Chinedu aside. I need to talk to you, Daniel whispered. It's about Alex. Chinedu's eyes narrowed. What about him? Daniel hesitated. I think he's lying to upper management about the project. Chinedu didn't look surprised. I know, he said quietly. But be careful, Daniel. Alex isn't someone you want to cross. Daniel nodded, but his mind was racing. Be careful? How could he be careful when the whole team was falling apart? As he walked back to his desk, Daniel couldn't shake the feeling that something big was about to happen. The cracks were getting wider, and soon everything would come crashing down. The office felt like a pressure cooker. Every day, the tension grew thicker, and Daniel could feel it weighing on him like a heavy blanket. Alex's lies were eating away at him, but he didn't know what to do. Chinedu's warning echoed in his mind. Be careful, Daniel. Alex isn't someone you want to cross. But how could he stay silent when the whole team was suffering? The naija Just Pay project was in shambles. Deadlines were missed, and the app was full of bugs. The team was working overtime, but no matter how hard they tried, they couldn't catch up. Alex's constant micromanaging made everything worse. Daniel, why is this taking so long? Alex snapped one afternoon, hovering over Daniel's desk. You're supposed to be the smart one, remember? Daniel clenched his fists under the table. I'm doing my best, Alex, but we're understaffed and the workload is too much. Alex laughed, but it wasn't a kind laugh. It was cold and mocking. Excuses won't get us anywhere. If you can't handle the pressure, maybe you're not cut out for this job. Daniel's face burned, but he didn't respond. He couldn't. He needed this job, and Alex knew it. That night, Daniel stayed late again, trying to fix the mess Alex had created. As he worked, he couldn't stop thinking about the lies in Alex's reports. He knew he had to do something, but what? The next morning, Daniel arrived at the office to find Chinedu and Tunde huddled together in the break room. They looked up when he walked in, their faces serious. Daniel, we need to talk, Chinedu said, gesturing for him to sit down. Daniel's heart raced as he joined them. What's going on? Tunde sighed. We're thinking about leaving. Alex is impossible to work with, and the project is going nowhere. If we stay, we'll just be setting ourselves up for failure. Daniel's stomach dropped. If Chinedu and Tunde left, the team would fall apart. But what about the project? What about naija just pay? Chinedu shook his head. The project is already doomed, Daniel. Alex's lies have put us in a hole we can't climb out of. The best thing we can do is walk away before it's too late. Daniel stared at them, his mind racing. He couldn't believe it was coming to this. Domino Stride Solutions had been his dream job, but now it felt like a nightmare. What if we told someone? Daniel blurted out. What if we exposed Alex's lies? Chinedu and Tunde exchanged a look. It's risky, Tunde said. Alex has connections. If we go against him, we could lose everything. But if we don't, he'll keep getting away with it, Daniel argued. He'll keep lying and the team will keep suffering. Is that what we want? There was a long silence. Finally, Chinedu spoke. Daniel, if you want to confront Alex, we'll back you up, but you need to be sure. Once you start this, there's no going back. Daniel took a deep breath. He wasn't sure about anything except one thing. He couldn't stay silent anymore. The next day, Daniel requested a meeting with Alex, Mrs. Adeleke, HR, and Mr. Suleiman, CEO. He didn't tell anyone what he was planning, but he could feel the tension in the air as he walked into the conference room. Alex was already there, leaning back in his chair with a smug smile. What's this about, Daniel? I hope it's important. I don't have time for nonsense. Daniel's hands were shaking, but he forced himself to stay calm. He placed a stack of papers on the table, the evidence he'd gathered. This is about the naija just pay project, Daniel said, his voice steady, and the lies Alex has been telling. The room went silent. Alex's smile faded, replaced by a look of anger. What are you talking about? Daniel didn't back down. I've compared Alex's progress reports to the actual data. The numbers don't match. Alex has been lying to upper management about the project's status. Mrs. Adeleke and Mr. Suleiman exchanged a glance. Is this true, Alex? Mr. Suleiman asked, his voice sharp. Alex stood up, his face red. This is ridiculous. Daniel is just trying to cover up his own incompetence. He's the reason the project is behind. But Daniel wasn't alone. Chinedu and Tunde walked into the room, standing behind him. It's not Daniel's fault, Chinedu said. Alex has been micromanaging and lying to everyone. The team is falling apart because of him. Tunde nodded. We can't keep working like this. Something has to change. The room erupted into chaos. Alex shouted, trying to defend himself, but the evidence was clear. Daniel stood his ground, his heart pounding. He didn't know what would happen next, but he knew one thing. He'd done the right thing. The conference room felt like a battlefield. Alex's face was red with anger, his fists clenched at his sides. Mrs. Adeleke, the HR manager, looked stunned, while Mr. Suleiman, the CEO, leaned forward in his chair, his expression unreadable. Daniel stood at the head of the table, the stack of evidence in front of him. His heart was pounding, but he forced himself to stay calm. Chinedu and Tunde stood behind him, their presence giving him strength. This is outrageous, Alex shouted, slamming his hand on the table. Daniel is lying. He's just trying to cover up his own mistakes. I'm not lying, Daniel said, his voice steady. He picked up one of the reports and handed it to Mr. Suleiman. These are the real numbers. Alex has been inflating the progress reports to make it seem like we're on track, but we're not. The project is months behind. Mr. Suleiman scanned the documents, his frown deepening. Mrs. Adeleke leaned over to look as well, her eyes widening. Alex tried to interrupt. This is nonsense. Daniel doesn't know what he's talking about. He's just a junior developer. Enough, Alex, Mr. Suleiman said sharply, cutting him off. He turned to Daniel. Are you sure about this? Daniel nodded. Yes, sir. I've double-checked everything. The evidence is clear. Chinedu stepped forward. It's not just Daniel. The whole team has been struggling because of Alex's leadership. He micromanages, takes credit for our work, and dismisses our concerns. Funky Balogun left because of him. Tunde added, and now the project is falling apart. If something doesn't change, the rest of us will leave too. The room fell silent. Alex glared at them, but for the first time, he looked unsure of himself. Mr. Suleiman leaned back in his chair, his expression thoughtful. This is a serious accusation. If what you're saying is true, it could have major consequences for the company. It is true, Daniel said firmly. And if we don't do something now, the naija Just Pay project will fail. Mrs. Adeleke cleared her throat. We'll need to investigate this further. In the meantime, I suggest we keep this matter confidential. We don't want to cause unnecessary panic. Daniel nodded, relieved that someone was finally taking him seriously. But then Mr. Suleiman spoke again, and his words sent a chill down Daniel's spine. "Alex, you'll be placed on temporary leave while we look into this," Mr. Suleiman said. "But let me be clear, if these allegations are true, there will be consequences." Alex's face turned pale, but he didn't argue. He shot Daniel a look of pure hatred before storming out of the room. For a moment, Daniel felt a surge of hope. Maybe things would finally change. Maybe the team could salvage the project and create a better work environment. But then, Mr. Suleiman turned to Daniel, Chinedu, and Tunde. "I appreciate your honesty," he said, "but I need you to understand something. Domino Stride Solutions is a growing company. We can't afford bad publicity. If this gets out, it could ruin our reputation." Daniel frowned. "What are you saying, sir?" Mr. Suleiman leaned forward, his voice low. "I'm saying that we need to handle this quietly. Alex will be dealt with, but we can't let this become public. In exchange for your silence, I'm prepared to offer you promotions and bonuses." Daniel's heart sank. He had expected justice, not a bribe. Chinedu spoke up. "With all due respect, sir, this isn't just about Alex. It's about the culture of this company. If we stay silent, nothing will change." Mr. Suleiman's expression hardened. "I understand your concerns, but this is the reality of business. Sometimes we have to make difficult decisions for the greater good." Daniel felt a wave of frustration. The greater good? What about the team? What about the people who had been suffering because of Alex's behavior? But before he could say anything, Mrs. Adeleke interrupted. "Let's take some time to think about this. We'll reconvene tomorrow to discuss next steps." The meeting ended, and Daniel, Chinedu, and Tunde walked out of the room in silence. None of them knew what to say. That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. He kept replaying the meeting in his mind, wondering if he'd done the right thing. He had exposed Alex's lies, but now he was being asked to stay silent in exchange for a promotion. It felt wrong. The next morning, Daniel arrived at the office early. Chinedu and Tunde were already there, waiting for him in the break room. "What are we gonna do?" Tunde asked, his voice low. Daniel took a deep breath. "I don't know about you, but I can't stay silent. If we take the promotions, we're just letting Alex, and people like him, get away with this." Chinedu nodded. "I agree, but if we walk away, we're risking everything. Jobs like this don't come easy." Daniel looked at them, his resolve hardening. "Maybe not, but if we don't stand up for what's right, who will?" There was a long silence. Finally, Tunde sighed. "You're right, I'm in." Chinedu smiled. "Me too." Daniel felt a surge of relief. They were in this together. Whatever happened next, they would face it as a team. The decision was made. Daniel, Chinedu, and Tunde agreed they couldn't stay silent. They couldn't accept the promotions and bonuses in exchange for covering up Alex's lies. It wasn't just about Alex anymore. It was about the kind of people they wanted to be. The next morning, they walked into Mr. Suleiman's office together. The CEO looked up from his desk, his expression unreadable. "Have you made your decision?" he asked, his voice calm but firm. Daniel stepped forward. "Yes, sir. We can't accept your offer. We won't stay silent about what's been happening." Mr. Suleiman's eyes narrowed. "Do you understand what you're saying? If you walk away, there's no coming back." Chinedu spoke up. "We understand, sir, but we can't be part of a company that values its reputation more than its people." Tunde added, "If Domino Stride Solutions won't change, then we have to." There was a long silence. Mr. Suleiman leaned back in his chair, his expression thoughtful. Finally, he sighed. "I respect your decision, even if I don't agree with it. But let me be clear. If you leave, you're on your own." Daniel nodded. "We know." And just like that, it was over. Daniel, Chinedu, and Tunde handed in their resignations and walked out of Domino Stride Solutions for the last time. Without Daniel, Chinedu, and Tunde, the naija Just Pay project collapsed. The app was never completed, and Domino Stride Solutions lost millions of naira. Alex was quietly let go, but the damage had already been done. The company's reputation took a hit, and it took years for them to recover. As for Alex, he struggled to find another job. His toxic behavior followed him wherever he went, and eventually he left Lagos altogether, hoping for a fresh start. Daniel, Chinedu, and Tunde didn't give up. They pooled their savings and started their own company, TechRoot Solutions. It wasn't easy. They worked long hours, took on odd jobs to make ends meet, and faced countless challenges. but they were determined to create a workplace where people were valued and respected. TechRoots started small, but it didn't stay that way for long. Word spread about the new company with a different approach to leadership. Talented developers and designers flocked to join them, eager to be part of something meaningful. 1 year later, TechRoots launched its first product, a mobile app called Naija Connect Hub, designed to help small businesses in Nigeria grow and thrive. It was a huge success, and the team celebrated their hard-earned victory. One evening, as Daniel sat in his new office, he thought about everything that had happened. He remembered the fear he'd felt when he first decided to confront Alex, the uncertainty of walking away from Domino Stride Solutions, and the struggles of starting over. But he also remembered the moment he realized he'd done the right thing. It wasn't about money or promotions. It was about standing up for what he believed in. Daniel looked at the photo on his desk, a picture of the TechRoots team, smiling and proud. They had built something amazing, not just because of their skills, but because of their values. As he closed his laptop for the night, Daniel smiled. He had learned the most important lesson of all. True leadership isn't about power or control. It's about empowering others and doing what's right, even when it's hard. I hope you enjoyed the story. If so, please like the video, comment what you learned from the tale, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more exciting life lessons folktales, just like this one. Thank you.